We have limited time. I want to make sure we get to all the guests. So we're going to give Kent the last word there. Archangel, feel free to stick around because we'll continue this discussion at the 2-hour mark. So for the last 10 minutes, we'll allow Dan and Kent to go back and forth. Dan is an evolutionary biologist. So if someone is going to have evidence for evolution, it's going to be Dan. Now, from my experience moderating the two of you, I know you guys are best friends and all, but you disagree on worldview and origins issues. So my recommendation is timed responses, 30 to 60 second timed responses, and that'll avoid any crosstalk, anything like that. And so why don't we therefore start with Dan. Dan, firstly, good to have you. Appreciate it.
Hi. Hey, folks. I'm Dan. I'm an evolutionary biologist. Channels, creation myths. Talk about why, this is all wrong. That's what I do.
Okay, go ahead. Give us your evidence.
So 30 seconds. Donnie, we doing 30 seconds? Is that the...
Yeah, let's go 30 seconds. Keep it a little more fast paced.
Yeah, 30 seconds. I dig it. Okay. Cool. So here's what I want to... for the first 30 seconds, there's going to be framing because, it takes time. But basically, what I'll start with is this. Kent's here saying evolution doesn't work. You can't create new things. Kinds always stay the same kind. Dogs always give birth to dogs. Yada, yada, yada. We've all heard it. He says none of the mechanisms work. Well, I got a whole list of mechanisms here, and I can give examples of how they work to do the things that Kent says they can't do. Now, I don't have, I probably already down to 10 seconds here, so I'll just say this. Let's start with genetic drift. Kent, tell us about genetic drift and what it is and what it can or cannot do.
Okay, that was essentially 30 seconds, so let's reset the timer, and I appreciate keeping it to one topic at a time. Kent, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, the genetic drift, the genetic code of any living creature is phenomenally complex. And within that code, there can be a drift back and forth. Two humans, a man and a woman, can produce 20 children. All of them have different variations. They're still human. The drift is limited. They're not going to drift into a banana. They're going to stay a human, okay? The dogs have drifted back and forth between Chihuahua and Great Dane, mostly selected by man. Sure, there is genetic drift. It doesn't cause any evolution at all. It's limited to the same kind of creature. Every time we've observed it, every farmer on the planet will tell you there is genetic drift, but it's limited.
Okay. So
go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so you don't know what genetic drift means, right? That's
I just
what
told you. I just told you what it means.
You didn't. You didn't get it right. That's not what genetic drift is. Have you ever heard of the phrase constructive neutral evolution? Have you heard of that?
Wait, before you answer, and I'll let you ask again to refresh. We're looking for evidence of evolution and not a quiz, and I appreciate
and Sam, in order we have to have the same vocabulary.
Hold on, Dan, but what we would like for you to do.
Okay, I'll just define it for him. Genetic drift.
No. This is me and Ken. No.
Yeah. So Dan, we're looking for evidence, not a mini quiz.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's what we're doing.
And not a lesson, like you talked at the beginning, Donnie. This isn't a time to lecture. Just tell me. Tell me.
All right. I'm just going to define it for him.
No, I'm jumping in. We're keeping it between Dan and Ken.
Jump in to hold
this isn't a free for all right now.
He's the expert, fellas. He's the expert. No one needs to hold Ken's hand here. I asked him to explain what genetic drift is. He got it wrong. He didn't do it. That's okay. Genetic drift is random changes in allele frequency in a population. That's what that means. That's what.
And actually, that's actually
okay. Phantom, I'm going to jump in. Phantom, I don't appreciate you just jumping in. Time after time after being told time after time not to do so. We're going to open it up. It'll be a free for all very soon. So just be patient and wait. Ken, Dan, let's start the Ken again.
Whoa, I got to get my next 30 seconds.
Donnie, I did answer his question very clearly. Genetic drift is the ability of the genetic code of two couples mating or something to the allele frequencies can vary, but they're limited, aren't they, Dan?
Okay, so thank you for, again, answering the question. Still not getting it right, but that's okay. For my next thing, I want to basically ask you if you've ever heard the phrase. I won't even take the whole 30 seconds. Have you heard the phrase? It's related to genetic drift because the point of genetic drift is that it's a neutral mechanism. It's a non-selective mechanism of evolution. Have you heard the phrase constructive neutral evolution? Have you heard that phrase? Do you know what that is?
I heard that phrase about 45 seconds
so why doesn't it generate new traits? Right? What is the limiting principle for constructive neutral evolution?
I think the burden of proof is on you to show me that it does work. Show me an example where it's happened. Farmers have been trying to select for more milk or more beef or bigger cows or smaller cows. Dog breeders have been trying with intense human effort. They tried to make this happen, not just natural selection, artificial selection. And they're running into a brick wall every time. Show me an example where it has changed to something new. You're supposed to be defending your religion tonight. By the way, there's no such thing as a evolutionary biologist. Okay, they're two separate categories. Go ahead.
That's time. Dan, there you go.
I'm here. Sorry. Okay, so I want the audience to notice what Kent just did there, because I asked a very specific question about constructive neutral evolution, which is a very specific mechanism of evolution, a subset of the neutral mechanisms of evolution. And what he did is he went to his script rather than answer the question, right? That's okay. We don't, if you want to talk about drift or neutral theory, constructive neutral evolution, that's fine. We can move on to another topic.
No, you tell me.
That's fine.
Stay on that topic. Stay on that topic. Tell me how that justifies teaching something like this. This is what's taught. Everything's related to an amoeba. Everything came from a single cell creature of some kind. Okay, we'll call it an amoeba. How does what you just said justify teaching this to the children?
No, that's not what no, I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to just buy into your script. I'm going to do that.
That's not a script.
Here's
what we're all paying to teach.
Hey, it's my turn. I get 30 seconds.
Right, hold on, Dan, you're going to get your 30 seconds. I am timing it, by the way, for everyone to see, but just real quick. I mean, you're just running your inquisitive script, right? So you don't need to accuse people of doing the script, because you're doing your script. Amen. He's doing his script. But what we're looking for, again, for the audience, is proof of evolution, not questioning whether or not Kent knows something. I'm looking, Donnie, you're looking, Kent, I know you've been looking for, your hair is getting gray. You've been looking for so long. Mine is too. But yeah, so Dan, if you have that instead of a quiz script, that'd be great.
Hey, Sam.
Go ahead. You got 30 seconds.
Hey, well, no. First of all, I'm going to say this to Sam, because he did this last time I was here too, running interference for Kent when Kent doesn't know the answers to the questions. I see the clock going, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I hope you hold it up for Kent as well. So I want to, since look, constructive neutral evolution, here's a mechanism for you: gene duplication, right? And we can talk about that if you want, but we all need to know what the words mean. Do you know what the Luria-Delbruck fluctuation test is? It's one of the most famous experiments in evolution. Have you heard of that? Because that explains how we get new traits.
So that's
Have you heard of that experiment?
So your question is gene duplication?
It's back to a quiz to show he's smart, I'm dumb.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yes,
listen, Dan,
that's what it is, Kent.
I could give you 1,000 Bible questions you can't answer either.
Yeah, because I'm not a Bible. I'm not an expert in the Bible.
Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that backs up this stupid chart that we're teaching the kids. Show me the evidence. This is what it's about tonight. The burden of proof is on you guys to show that evolution is not a religion. We believe all of this change from an amoeba to a whale is a religious belief. Show me how it isn't. That's the purpose of that's the purpose of the debate tonight.
Show us evidence of your fairy tale, Dan.
If I give you words,
seconds.
If I give you words and you don't know what they mean, then it's pointless. So I have to find something that you know what it means before I can talk about it.
Give me evidence. Forget the words. Give me evidence. Show me where an animal has ever changed.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan. You got 15 more seconds, and then...
So we can't talk about genetic drift. We can't talk about constructive neutral evolution because you don't know what those words mean. You don't know what the Luria-Delbruck fluctuation test is. How about recombination? That's a way to get new traits. How does recombination work? How does genetic recombination work?
Okay. Well, if I can mod again, and I'm sorry. So you do have a question. But again, for the audience, what we're looking for is evidence for evolution. So maybe Dan, maybe for your next response, just grant that Kent doesn't know the nomenclature or whatever, and just provide an argument or something like that. That'd be cool. So, so please repeat your question, and then your quiz, and then we'll let Kent answer, and then maybe you can give the evidence we're dying to have. So, ask your question, please.
How does genetic recombination work?
Okay, the genetic code of any living creature is more complex than the entire space shuttle. It's more complex than the entire space program. The genetic code from one person, tied end to end and stretched out, would go across the solar system twice. there has to be copies of that code made. The DNA has to unzip itself, make a copy, zip back together. Sometimes it gets mistakes made, mutations in the copying process. But the copying process of the code is so phenomenal to find a mistake in it and to get it to make a duplication, for instance, duplicating the genes. If I say, here, I want you to read this book. Tell you what, I'm going to give you 50 copies of the book. It's still the same book, okay? Copying duplicating same information is not going to create anything new. It's a duplication of the same information.
That's time. So Dan, we're going to give you 46 seconds to provide your actual evolution evidence instead of a quiz, hopefully this time.
Yeah, I'll start by pointing out that if Kent knew the answer, he would have answered the question. Instead, he went to his script about how complex DNA is, instead of actually saying, here's what recombination is, here's how it works, and here's why it's not evolution, right? But he didn't do that because he doesn't know how recombination works. But the way you get new traits via recombination is by combining this thing and that thing, and now they mix and match together through double-stranded DNA breaks, and then you get a new allele that didn't exist previously. What about horizontal gene transfer? That's a good one. That's a good mechanism. Does Kent know what horizontal gene transfer is?
Well, you're off to a new question before you answer.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so
I don't think you know what that is either.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna interfere one more time. So I'm not sure how the stream is gonna go, if we're gonna continue running the Dan script of the mini quizzes or what. But
as soon as Kent can answer, we can have a conversation.
Evidence for evolution.
As soon as he can answer, we can have a conversation about that topic.
Okay, let me jump in. If I could steal, man.
If he doesn't know the words, then we can't have a conversation about it, right? Like if someone tried to
again, I'm going to jump in. So if I could
hang on,
steal,
Donnie,
man,
let me just make a real short, just 30,000-foot view thing. If someone tried to have a conversation with me about quantum physics, I could not have that conversation because I don't know what the words mean, right? So I'm trying to find a topic where I could have a back and forth with Kent. In order to do that, we have to establish common understanding of what the basic terms mean. And so far, through recombination, through the Luria-Delbruck test, genetic drift, constructive neutral evolution, we haven't found that because Kent hasn't known what any of these words mean. And Sam said we should just stipulate that. So I have to keep trying new topics to find something, Kent, that I can talk about.
So
if I could jump in before anybody goes, guys, I'm going to jump. I'm going to steal, man, Dan. I understand what you're saying. We're going to give Kent a chance to respond. And so evidence for evolution, you're looking to recombination and then also horizontal gene transfer. So you've described recombination as basically being this process where you have pieces of DNA, they're broken, then they're recombined, they're shuffled to produce new combinations of alleles, is what you said. And then horizontal gene transfer.
Oh, hang on. I asked Kent. We got to see if Kent can answer that. That's
but I'm not just defining it, but these are what you're saying.
Let's see if
are
he can do it, Donnie. I came here to
traits.
talk to him about this stuff. Let's see if he can do it.
I would like the audience to notice that everything he has said is assuming we already have DNA.
You can't do it. Nope.
That skips over the first 4 steps. Where did matter come from? Where did time come from? So you can't just jump into that. Where did life get started? You want to start, like I've said earlier, this is what you guys always do. You don't want to talk about the first 4 because it's a religious belief. You want to start with the DNA code and talk about how there's horizontal transfer, how they duplicate or make mistakes or alleles, and how that there are mutations. And this is somehow going to drive this process. I'm sorry, you're missing the point completely, and purposely missing the point. You want to start with living things. I'm sorry, you can't do that. That would be a religious belief. Do you have a scientific answer for how life got started? Dan, let's start there.
Real quick. Don't lose that thought. I just want to point out it was Albert Einstein who said that if you can't explain a topic to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. So surely, Dan, you can explain these things without the nomenclature, right? You can just make it a simple proof of evolution for a 6-year-old. Maybe you could do that. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, Sam, evolution is biology, not math, though. So let's just be clear. We don't prove things.
All science is based on math.
Yeah, right. So that you don't use modeling to support your.
We don't. I mean, maybe I should ask how the science.
Can you just write a paper that had to do with mathematical modeling?
See, now you're just talking over me.
Well, I was responding. You asked me a question, but I'm not the one on the hot seat. I believe Kent's on the hot seat, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Give him an argument for a 6-year-old that can understand it, so I can understand it, and then.
But Kent's an expert. But Kent's an expert in this.
But the audience isn't. I'm not.
Okay, but I'm talking. I came to
I don't
talk to
know
Kent.
any of this stuff, and make it simple.
You can't even explain it, so.
I came to talk to Kent, and he's an expert, right?
Okay,
well,
Dan,
but you are, right?
At a time.
Yeah, I am.
One topic at a time.
Okay, well, Kent, like I said, Kent, I'm trying to be polite to you and find a topic that you understand so we could talk about it, right? Because you're an expert, but I've asked a couple of things and you don't know what the words mean, so I have to keep trying. So what about plasmids?
Dan,
how about just let's stick with horizontal gene transfer.
Shut him off for a second. All you're doing is running your script, okay?
Yeah.
You want to use these big words that 99% of the audience doesn't know. I've studied it years ago. I don't remember. I don't typically use that, okay? I could go back and refresh my notes, okay? I could learn it, okay?
So you know what that is.
I have studied it before. I don't have it on the top of my head. But you are, again, missing the point purposely. You are skipping the first 4 essential steps. This whole, all 6 stages, all of this is proof that evolution is a religion. That's the purpose of the debate tonight. Why do you want to start with genes? Genes are incredibly complex. Where did they get started? Where did the code come from? Where did the material come from to make the code? Where did the chemicals come from? Where did time and space and energy? You want to skip all that. And you want to hide behind this smoke cloud with your script you're reading about big words to dazzle the audience. Where and how did life get started? Don't tell me how the gene, once you get a gene, now you can manipulate it. No.
Oh, great. So once we have, just so we're clear. So once we have living things, we're good. Then we can do whatever.
No, you're still not good.
Okay, then that's what we're talking about.
Hey, Dan, take 30. Dan, take 30 seconds.
Okay.
You can't start with living things. Good.
Now, Kent, look, you're the expert here is what I'm hearing. I was listening earlier and you said, I've studied this for decades. I understand all this better than you called Jackson stupid. Basically, that was rude. Like, so now here you are, you're the expert.
No, that was me. Stupid, Dan.
I said you were doing a bad job. That was different. I think you're very intelligent.
That was me that
say any such thing.
Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, you're the expert. And so I'm here trying to find something that we as experts can talk about. And I would like to have a high-level technical discussion with you, but there's just a whole bunch of topics we just ran through that you didn't know or you didn't want to talk about because you just went to your script. I mean, like we'll talk about, we could stick with horizontal gene transfer because that's a really important mechanism of evolution that generates more complexity. One way that happens very frequently is through elements called plasmids. Do you know what a plasmid is? Because if you don't, there's no point in me saying anything else, right? So do you know what a plasmid is?
I think there's no point in you saying anything else, period. Okay. You're skipping over the first 4 steps. No, listen to Dan. Okay. Look at what you just did. You still are avoiding the first 4 steps of evolution. With the purpose tonight is to prove that evolution isn't a religion. You are proving our point. You want to start with living things, start with DNA already there, and explain how it changed. No, you skip first and second base, sir. Go back and tell me how life got started. Tell me where matter and energy came from. Then maybe we can talk about the gene transfer and the DNA code and all that stuff. I'm not going to let you start with DNA code. You're going to skip it again, go back to your script.
Here's the thing, folks. So I'm going to use my 30 seconds to point out what's going on here because Kent just spent like an hour talking to Jackson Rowe about all sorts of stuff related to biology because it's stuff that he felt he could talk about because it's in his script. The stuff that I'm asking about is not in the script. So all of a sudden, no, we can't talk about biology. Yeah. We got to go back to physics on here because he doesn't actually know about anything that we're talking about here. He doesn't know any of this stuff.
Dan, have you ever heard of a red herring?
Yeah. Amen.
This in debate, Dan. This is called a fallacy of poisoning the well, and this is also a fallacy of obfuscation.
He could have just answered the questions.
This is obfuscation with semantic ambiguity. That's all you're doing. What you're not doing, Dan, is explaining to us in a simple way any evidence for evolution. So yeah, you know some terms, and that's great. I can do that with you too. I can give you a bunch of philosopho speak, and then
I can give you some
and challenge your intellectual ability to follow a conversation.
And I'll just say I don't know any of that stuff.
But that's just obfuscating, isn't it? So
yeah, but see, that's not my field. So I'm honest enough to say that's not my field.
I'll be done in a second. I've got about 10 more seconds left. So for the audience, Dan's script entails many quizzes and accusing people of running a script. And that's all we've received from the expert. So if an expert comes on the show, an expert in evolutionary biology, and doesn't actually provide any evidence for evolution, I think you got a problem.
How many
And that's where
mechanisms
we're
did
at,
I
so-
provide? How many mechanisms did I
We're going
give
to
you?
keep it back to you. He knows words, but he doesn't know any evidence for evolution, and that's where we're at.
Okay.
Kent, please.
Sam?
Go.
Dan,
Go
Dan,
for it. 30
Dan,
seconds,
Sam,
Ken.
Sam.
just because
Kenton, you can
someone,
go after Ken. We'll
regardless of whether
rotate
or
you
not-
in.
Okay,
And-
we're way after,
Yeah.
we're way over time for me. I've got to go. But listen, I will go back and review, and I will study up each of the topics
Please
he brought
do.
up and get
Thank
ready.
you.
And Dan, I will debate you on them as soon as you answer the first 4 steps of evolution. I'm not going to talk about number 5, variations with changing from one kind to another. You're stuck on number 5, macroevolution. You're trying to prove that. No, the first 4 are religious. So as soon as you give a logical, provable, demonstrable, scientific answer for where time, space, and matter came from, for how the hydrogen turned to uranium and gold, the chemical evolution, you give a logical, show me the stellar evolution. How did this planet get here that we're standing on? These all have to be, you have to have the planet before you can have life. Show me how life got started from non-living material. You are the one running a script, running from the obvious that you believe in a stupid religion.
Well,
Okay, Dan.
I'm gonna go hang out with.
Spot on, Hovind. Spot
Hang
on.
on. No, I'm just gonna say
You're gonna
one
get
quick
30
thing and then
seconds.
I'll leave.
Go
No,
ahead.
look,
I will come. I'll come
That's
back
fair.
and I'll come back and
just so
debate
you know, Kent, he's gonna make some video about how you
Right,
know
right.
nothing.
I will
and blah,
debate you,
blah,
Dan.
blah, blah.
I
Dan,
totally
I will
am.
debate you.
You got
I'll
my
debate
number.
you
I'll
on.
be there for you to refute.
Hold
you
on,
as
hold
well.
on, gentlemen,
I
really
will
quick.
debate
Dan,
you. I'll debate
you're
you.
gonna
on
No,
number
I just have
5.
one more
You're
question
gonna
for
get
Ken.
You're gonna get your 30 seconds. We're gonna get
Yeah.
your 30 seconds, and then Kent's gonna leave us. Kent,
But
thank
yeah,
you for your
And
time.
I'm gonna peace out.
Dan,
too,
we
yeah.
hope you stick around
Sam.
because
Sam.
Phantom Thief has some questions for you also. So,
No,
so
Sam,
um,
before you go,
please.
Dan,
No,
has
Here,
one-
you go
Dan-
ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
Dan
I
has
was just
one.
gonna
He
ask
has
him
one
to
more
define
point
all
in
those
his
points.
script. He's got one more big word in his script. He has to get across. Let's hear
No,
it, Dan.
Right.
No, I don't have any more big words. I have one more question for Kent, because he just talked about how biologists, if we're going to explain and defend evolutionary theory, we're responsible not just for evolution, but for everything in the lead up, right? The development of stars and the solar system, da 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 da. So, and he won't talk about macro evolution with me until I justify all those other steps beforehand.
Correct.
So here's
Correct.
the question, and here's the question I want to leave you with. You just spent over an hour talking about that exact thing with Jackson without making him justify those 4 steps. Why the difference?
I pointed out those 6 steps to Jackson also. Look at the title. This is my title. Look at the title of
And
the
yet
debate.
you talk to him, and you're
Yeah,
saying you
and
won't
I'll-
talk
and
to
I'll-
me
and I'll talk to
unless
you.
I answer those questions, right? So
we
why the
got-
discrepancy there?
Hold on, Dan.
Before we discuss the problems of elephants flying, let's explain how an elephant can fly. You have the problem of defining how life got started. The DNA code is incredibly complex. For heaven's sake, if you study biology, you know the DNA code is mind-boggling in its complexity, and its replication process is mind-boggling in its complexity. The fact that there are some horizontal transfers or genes mixing up or mutations, you're missing the point. Where did the gene come from?
Mhm.
You don't want to talk about that because it exposes you have a religious belief, and you want to think you're a scientist. No, Dan, you're a religionist. You're a zealot of a religious cult. You believe in evolution. You believe the first 4 can just be skipped. They
Mhm.
cannot.
Mhm.
Evolution is nothing but a religion. Prove us wrong. I think you demonstrated clearly to the audience that you want to skip over the first 4 because you can't. It's not part of your field. Your expertise is in biology.
Mhm.
Biology of what? What evolved? Where did this DNA come from? I don't know, but it was just here. No. I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to let you start with DNA. So
The question is, why did you let Jackson? So thank you for your non-answer. Have a good night, Kent.
It's because I like Jackson much better than you, Dan. Okay.
Just so you know,
That's a badge
Dan,
of
when you
honor,
make a
thank
video,
you.
I'm gonna make
All
the
right.
one refuting you. So have a nice day.
Dan, stick around. Dan, stick around. I got
No, I'm
question.
gonna go like have fun with people I like later, everybody.
Hey,
Dan,
man.
Dan,
Hold on, Dan, I got a question.
Oh my gosh, that guy's a coward.
Just so you guys know,